Biggest fear is like, oh man, I'm going from a steady paycheck to, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So one of the biggest things, after 90 days is like, oh man, where are these customers? Where am I gonna get them from? How am I gonna get these customers? You're kind of all over the place just trying to get work. The biggest fear, obviously, going into this is just being able to kind of take care of yourself and your family.
What is up, guys? Griffin here, back with another podcast interview. Of course, like I mentioned, we're going to be doing a lot of these in 2026 and beyond. And today we got another guest. We got Freddie Quispe, owner of JKR Pest Solutions out of, where are you at, Connecticut or New England up there, Freddie?
Wapacher Post, New York.
New York, that's right. He's got over 122, or right at 122, that is, 5-star reviews on Google. Been in business right around a year or so now, and we're just going to dive in and have another conversation that'll hopefully help those of you that are either considering starting your own pest control business or possibly, growing your pest control business, help take you to that next level. So I appreciate you hopping on today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Big fan. Been supporting you for a while too.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I guess we'll just kind of dive right in. I always start with just kind of a hard but simple question at the same time. Whenever you first started your business, what was one thing that almost made you quit? If there was anything that you were just like, man, what am I doing? Like what was that one thing? I would say that first like 90 days.
So, obviously going into it initially, the biggest fear is like, oh man, I'm going from a steady paycheck to, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So one of the biggest things, after 90 days is like, oh man, where are these customers? Where am I gonna get them from? How am I gonna get these customers? You're kind of all over the place just trying to get work. So the biggest fear, obviously, going into this is just being able to kind of um take care of yourself and your family, because I'm married, I have kids. So that's the biggest one. I was in a position where I kind of came into this with capital, just to make sure, I was comfortable for at least 6 months going into this. But, I mean, you have enough to pay the bills, but you never know. Anything can happen from, day one to, day 30, 60, or 90. So, but yeah, I mean, just, being able to start with some kind of capital was a big thing, but just continuing to have the fear of like, is it going to be steady or not?
Right. Yeah, no. And one thing like a lot of people don't think about when it comes to the whole emergency fund is, yeah, that'll help us pay the bills like you mentioned, but like for me, for example, my wife didn't have a job for majority, she was a stay-at-home mom. It's like, what about health insurance? Especially with how much health insurance is nowadays. It's like, I mean, luckily for us, my wife actually decided to go back to work this past year, and we're definitely glad she did because our insurance was gonna go up about $2,000 a month, which would just, even with where we're at now, would not be ideal. Where her job, it's like, I think 600 a month, something like that. So, I mean, there's just a lot that goes into that, especially now. Like, I feel like when I started my business, like, yeah, you still have that concern, but everything since 2019, 2020 has just got so out of control with costs that there's a lot that has to be taken into consideration for sure. So I can see that 100% over the first 30 to 90 days being a huge burden, to say the least.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of, I guess, really just kind of like expect the unexpected. So yeah, that's one of those things, especially in New York. I mean, New York is just crazy expensive. I mean, everything, get the hot dog used to be like $1. Now you're looking at 250 down in the city. So yeah, I mean, it probably even more. I mean, I haven't been down in Manhattan in a long time, but yeah, I mean, really just you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the cost of living, just, I'm sure in different parts of the country is a lot. But, you know, if I was to make any recommendations or just give anybody advice like getting into the business is, and I think you've given this advice too, is like, go into this starting a business kind of with some capital or just some savings to kind of get you afloat for a while. Um, if you're gonna get into it, get into it. and then the rest you're just gonna have to figure out as it comes. But expect the unexpected and keep it going from there.
Exactly. No, yeah, a lot of people think that even I had, like 6 months to 12 months of an emergency fund, and I'm like, "Gosh, no," like, I mean, I lost my job in November or October of 2020, and I just happened to have a car that was paid off, worth about 6 to 8 grand. Cashed out what little amount that I had in the 401k. Like, it ended up being right around, like, $10,000 total, and 2 of that had to go towards a down payment on a truck. Like, I had probably what came out to 1 to 2 months, and a lot of that got fed right into Google local service ads and things like that to get the phones ringing, um, which just amazes people even more whenever I mention we haven't knocked on a single door to this day. That's changing this year, of course, but it's just, how much are you willing to sacrifice when it comes to that? And I guess, like, speaking while we're on that subject of, like, the first year and everything, you know, I guess when you started, because I know you said you're about a year or so in, when you started, what did you think 1 year in would look like versus kind of what the reality ended up being?
Yeah, so I'm about a year and a half in the business now. So I started towards the latter part of 2024. Um, so basically from October of 2024 to December, those were like my, kind of settling into things, from getting the business started, from, forming the business, to, getting the, the, the insurances for the business, for the vehicles, the liability insurance, everything else that comes with it, as well as being compliant with the state, applying pesticides and, rodenticides, all that stuff. I mean, so I had some time, and then, as I mentioned earlier, um, I kinda came in this with having an opportunity to get some work from a buddy of mine in the New England area with some commercial work. So, coming into this, I did have an opportunity already with some revenue coming in, for some commercial work, and very grateful. A lot of these accounts are national accounts, so it's been a great opportunity for me working from there. But from when I first started, so I'm gonna account 2025 as really my first year. So the first year, we finished at 150, 100,000, which was great. I mean, we kicked ass. I mean,
Mhm.
I started as a one-man show, eventually in March of 2025, purchasing a vehicle, and then bringing on, a service technician to help with, the work in the summer. This technician has stayed with us and is still, doing their things. They work 3 days a week, so they're on a part-time basis, but,
Oh,
um, so that yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of growth within that first year, and just like you, I didn't knock on a single door. I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, I'm a little iffy on that too because, New York,
yeah.
someone may chase you, or something like that. So, because it's happened.
Right.
uh, so, for me, it was getting an all knowledge from LSA, and big credit to you for that. And then just using a lot of connections that I've had in the industry, prior to, from the history of, like, since I started doing pest control. Um, yeah, I mean, it's really been a journey. I've been very blessed. My wife's been very supportive. One of the biggest things that I can say that motivated me a lot, that's like I completely stopped drinking like probably about 2 years ago, and that kind of gave me a lot of clarity, to kind of just go full throttle and just say, you know what, just do it. No more fear. And
Right.
yeah, and I mean, I haven't, thank God I don't drink anymore, but, not that I've had a problem, but, it's just kinda one of those things where I'm like, "You know what? Let me just do it. Let me just stay sober. Let's see what it does." And it really just gave me more energy. Just my mind was clear to just kinda just do it without fear, and just have the support that I need. Um, but
Well, and I don't know about you, but I was kinda same in terms of, like, I wasn't a drunk or anything, but I would drink,
Mhm.
at least regular enough to where we had something in the house, in terms
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
if it was a bottle or a case, whatever the case may be, like, we had something in
Mhm.
the house, and over the last, like, 2 years roughly, I've only kinda drink I could count on less than one hand of fingers in terms of how often I've drank. And I don't know about you, but with that, it, to your point on clarity, it made me kind of actually be forced to sit there with my thoughts. Sometimes that can make you kind of like feel like you're kind of freaking out to a degree, but also a lot of times, like, because you have that clear, crystal clear thinking going on in your head, I've had a lot more just what I feel like were better, clear, actionable ideas, not even just from a business standpoint, but just everything. Like, it just feels like everything has come together so much better since I pretty much stopped drinking outside of the maybe once a year.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm Spanish, so so I'm an immigrant, I migrated from Peru when I was younger, and, I have a buddy of mine who always says, like, "We're Spanish, man, like, we don't drink normal." It's just kinda one of those things where, like, you just kinda were always around it, but,
Right.
yeah, since stopping, the clarity was such a huge thing where, you feel better too, at the end of the day, so, um, but really going back to the how the business grew the first year, I tried different things. Right now I work with Thrive software, and they basically run my SEO. I do utilize them for some leads and social medias when I need it from time to time. It's kind of like an on and off button, but the SEO is constant. Just so I can have that visibility at least around 5 or 6 zip codes around my area, because that's really I wanna grow my area at the most, and then from there kind of stretch out into different areas. Um, Networks, I don't know if you heard it, but it's basically like another Thumbtack. So Thumbtack, I
Yeah.
never used Angie's, never used Yelp. Um, but yeah, really just working with Thrive, LSA, it was another one because it did generate a lot of revenue. Um, so a variety of different things, and networking was a huge one.
Right. And I guess too, like, speaking of like getting leads and all these different, I guess, platforms that are available out there, not just from a generating lead standpoint, but accounting, just everything. Whenever, you started your business and, over the last year and a half, that you had experience using all these different platforms and doing all these different things. Like, what would you say was the maybe the hardest thing that you underestimated in terms of, like, not just starting the business, but actually growing the business?
Underestimated. I guess the cost of everything, because I'm the type of guy that like I know how to do some stuff, when it comes to like, technical stuff and like coding and all that stuff. I mean, I'm kinda in that position where I rather just have someone I'll pay someone to help me with that, in this situation, but, you know, though I there was that revenue that came in, I mean, it kinda just there's a goal. I came in here with a 5-year goal, so, like, there's a lot more costs because of the things that I want. So year 2, I mean, there's a big expectation. By year 3, I expect to be out of the truck. Uh, could I do it now? Yeah, I could, but I still wanna be involved to make sure that, the services are getting done right, because, yeah, you're gonna get all these customers that are gonna come to you, but, the service at least has to stay consistent, and a big
Well,
part of that.
girl.
Yeah, exactly. The service has to stay consistent, and if it doesn't, then that kinda becomes an issue.
Mhm.
Um, but the cost of things, I mean, you're gonna make this money, and then it's kinda gonna go out, because I'm on payroll, and with the service technician that works with me, I have him on payroll too. So, payroll has been the biggest cost the first year. Right after that, basically marketing, and little ancillary things, gas, payments for the vehicles and all that stuff. But just yeah, money coming in, money going back out.
Yeah, lots of cash flow management, to put it lightly. Like, I always tell my wife, I'm like, I know that I'm needing to go ahead and make a move for us to jump up to another level whenever I start to get kind of complacent with cash flow tracking. Like I have my, my sheets and QuickBooks and everything that I keep an eye on. But when I start to get to where just day to day, I'm just punch the number in, check it. Okay, we got plenty of money, move on. That's when I know, like, okay, what do we need to do? It's not to say that you should be stretched razor thin all the time. It, of course, all depends on how much stress you can handle. But me personally, I know like whenever I start just kind of checking out in terms of the finances, I'm like, okay, we clearly have too much money just sitting around. Like, what do we need to do to go ahead and put this to work and get us to another level? But no, whenever you are in that stage, that first year, especially the first year, I would say, um, that cash flow management is just that's why I stress to people all the time. Before you start your business, you better make sure you can handle a personal budget first. Because if you have problems handling your personal finances, ooh, business is a whole nother ball. That personal
Yeah,
finances.
I totally agree. On the upside, I do, budget my personal finances pretty well. One of the biggest things though that I can say is I do have a CPA, which, he's awesome. I mean, that's one of the biggest things, one of the things that you really want to also incorporate your first year is just to find a really good, somebody's going to do your taxes for you. Um,
Exactly.
I utilize his services on a quarterly basis just to make sure that everything is looking good. We'll touch base every now and then. He calls me, whatever. There's questions here and there, and then we get ready for the end of the year. I do sales taxes on my own. I'm pretty good at doing that, just because of
Right.
I use field routes. So I mean, just reporting and whatnot is pretty simple.
Good.
Utilizing their CRM. I hate paying sale tax, but, it is what it is. That's just
Yeah.
kinda New York for you. I don't know how
Oh yeah.
Texas is, but,
It always blows people's mind. We get at least one person, one customer a month that's like, "Wait, you all have to charge sales tax?" Because, like, on most services in Texas, you do not, but in pest control, for pest control services, you do, and even in pest control, it's weird because, some services, if you're just doing, like, I guess you could call it, like, general contracting type of work, construction, so to speak, exclusion service, if you're doing exclusion service with no bait of any kind, anything like that, then you don't have to charge sales tax. But of course, we usually set out rodent boxes at the time of doing the first seal up. We set traps and stations, all of that. So that ends up making it fall in that category, and it's like, it's just such a headache in terms of all that. But no, yeah, Texas, it's what it depends on your city that your location's in. Ours, I think it's like 8.2 or 8.25%.
everybody wants a piece of the pie, right? So,
Exactly.
especially when you're out here trying to make it, so yeah, having a good accountant, somebody that's gonna handle that for you, you wanna get that established right away in your first year. You don't wanna get in trouble with Uncle Sam. I'm kinda old school. I want them to stay as far away from me as much as possible. I'll pay what I have to pay. I'm respectful, and then delete them
Yeah.
after that.
Exactly. Oh yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. Like I did my own taxes for the first year because I was in business like 2 months before the end of the year, so I was like, I have minimal stuff to do anyways. But that first full year, I was like, yeah, we're not gonna mess with this at all. Like from what I hear from people, I'm probably slightly overpaying my accountant, but like I tell them, I'm like, am I overpaying though with how much I'm saving on taxes too though? Like at the end of the day, if I gotta pay, I'd rather help another business than, just send a blank check to the government. So, I definitely suggest people. I will never stop beating that drum. Like, if you're gonna be serious, get an accountant that first full year. You can get away if you're starting out, over halfway through the year. If you want to follow yourself, you're probably still not gonna have the best results doing that, but you can get away with it that first half a year or whatever. But that first full year, don't take the risk.
Yeah, no, I agree. And do your research on finding somebody that'd be willing to work for you. I mean, different parts of the country, you have all 4 seasons. So, pest control is seasonal. So some of them will price you out in a way where like, all right, cool, you're making more money these months, so I'm gonna charge you more. But you're slow these months, and I'm gonna charge you less. So the
Mhm.
big part of it is really just being able to do your research and finding somebody that one day you trust and one day you can get along with, because a lot of
And
people will
paying
overcharge you.
speaking of that too, and, like, finding out, is there discounts for paying for a year up front or just
Yeah.
like us, like how we offer a little, "Oh, if you decide to go ahead and commit for 1 year,
Mhm.
2 years, whatever." Always, the worst they can say is, "No, we don't do that." Like, you might as well ask. Like, if you don't see it on the website, who cares? Like, you might as well ask. Like, doesn't
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt.
bro.
Nope, doesn't hurt.
Um, no, 100%. And you actually hit on a point that I actually wanted to ask you about because I know it's gonna be way different for you than it is down here. What, I guess, do you all, specifically you in this case, do whenever it's slow season? Like, how long is slow season for you guys? And, like, what do you do to continue to get business and try to not just, maintain, but continue to grow during the slow season?
So in New York, again, you get all your seasons. So this year we've had just probably about the coldest, uh, winter in at least in the area that I'm in. It's in the last 9 years. I mean, it hasn't been that cold, and we've gotten a lot of snow. What I focused on to keep us busy is um essentially is working on bids or, focusing on bringing in those big housing authorities. So going out again, a big part of it is networking. So um, I being in the industry for 15 years this coming August, I've made a lot of good relationships from different people from different parts of the country, mostly the Northeast, but, being in that particular situation, a lot of people know that, what I can bring to the table as far as service, like on a technical aspect of it. For me, I just, pest control has kind of always been not necessarily an easy thing because it's always ever changing, but it's just the service part of it, I really enjoy it. But recently, what I'm focusing, at least during the colder season, is bringing in some of those housing authorities in the areas here uh, through networking. Again, I do. I'm not part of like your local, what do they call it?
Chambers of
Build.
commerce.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I'm not involved with any of that stuff. I should be, but eventually, it's just not a priority of mine right now.
For
And again,
sure, and they're not cheap either, a lot of them,
yeah.
that's the other thing, like, I tell people that you probably, since you watch the content, know, like, I love utilizing them even for, like,
Mhm.
just a backlink, but at the same time, like, you gotta be strategic about it because if you're not going to use the other things, like the networking meetings and stuff like that, it's like, is it worth the money? Some of them over
Yeah.
$1,000 a year, it's like, "Ugh, what can I do with that money?" Otherwise, like you said, there's priorities to it for sure.
In my area, you have your big guys, you have your Orkans, you have your Terminex, you have your Anticimex, Rent-A-Kill, all those big companies. Eventually, everybody is under the umbrella of Terminex, it seems. And so it's just Terminex and Orkin. But um, really, what it comes down to, at least in my area, is there's a lot of family-owned businesses. Everybody has their own little thing that they offer. Everybody has their own special services, their own packages. So, I've said it many times. I don't feel like I necessarily compete with the Orkins or the Terminex. I'll take their customers whenever, but I think the family-owned businesses in the area it's more competitive with them, because you have a lot of them. I mean, just in my zip code alone, where I live, there's 4 companies. So it's pretty competitive. And yeah, besides networking and being able to bring in the housing authorities or those big multi-housing units, um, it doesn't hurt to call, pick up the phone call, call um
Some businesses, like
the restaurants here.
that's what I
What's
was
good? Yeah, just write them free inspections.
That's what I was even thinking, because I was thinking about this. I did a workout right before we hopped on this call. Had another call randomly pop up before too, but I was thinking about that because I was like, man, I bet it's kind of cool up there for at least maybe half the year. And of course, obviously, you got road work and stuff. But I was like, man, I bet commercial work matters a lot more. Like it helps a lot in terms of like building each year. You get to build another block of just stability by adding a lot of commercial contracts during the off season. Um, So I guess that's kind of on what I was thinking, expecting.
Yeah, and at least also with my kind of experience in, working for the other guys, I mean, I worked a lot with bigger accounts. So, when I'm going out there to find these commercial accounts, I don't want to, I mean, I'll take the restaurants, whatever opportunity I can get. But I like those big accounts. Me personally, just as somebody that's still, is still in the truck. I like those challenges. I like to go
Mhm.
into I like to go into someone's apartment and I'm like, there's roaches all over the place. I'm like, oh man, how am I gonna kill these things? It's fun, and then it's also rewarding.
Especially when you know it's coming from a unit above, unit beside.
Yeah, totally.
You're almost kinda like, "Ah, let's see what we can do here."
And then it's really rewarding too when, a month and a half later, after just like, treating the hell out of these units, the the tenant that's living there is happy, and then in turn, the property management is happy, the housing authority is happy, and then, everybody is just it goes all the way around. So, for me, the challenges are working in those bigger accounts is cool. I do like, I focus more of integrated pest management, especially if you have like those distribution centers.
Yes.
Those are big ones. I wish I could get more of those, but we are pretty consistent with a lot of the work that we're doing now.
Right. And, speaking of, I heard you mention something about, like, all of the mom and pop, smaller, probably under 3 guys or less type of shows, we'll call it. Um, and I'm sure that just like down here, ultra competitive because of that. Would you say also that you notice a lot of them getting caught up into that race to the bottom? And would you say at any point that you felt like, based on like the numbers we're showing in the data, that you might have even been underpriced at some point? Or did you just completely say, like, I'm not gonna involve myself in that race to the bottom.
No, I know what kind of service that the JKR can provide. So I'm not the cheapest. I'm not gonna be. That's just the reality of it. I mean, again, I'm myself just being in the industry. I mean, I have so New York State is a little bit different. I don't know how it is in Texas, but I'm a commercial applicator. I have 4 different subcategories under my license. I'm also licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and in Connecticut. And
Mm,
along with that, just again, just being in the industry for a couple of years, I had the opportunity to take different corresponding courses with Purdue University, AIB, and all that stuff. So,
right.
there's a lot of experience, especially with how I provide services and to the customers, both commercial and residential. And the guy that works with me, he's really cool too. I mean, he's young, but I trust him. And um, before the winter actually started, I brought in a full-time guy, and it just really didn't pan out. So, because I wanted to get out of the truck, and that was the reason why the full-time guy came on board, but it just didn't plan out. So now I'm in the process. I'm hunting, looking to find somebody that's gonna kind of contribute to what we already have now. And just build a good team. Ultimately, it's difficult to bring in someone you don't know, and you want to be able to trust them. But that's part of the risk of being a business owner. You have to kind of just take that risk regardless. Um, and going back to the point as far as like pricing, yeah, I don't I provide a good service. When I started, there was companies that are around my area that, they had like 30 reviews. Again, I want to be the top dog in my area, so I
Right.
was doing everything possible to get reviews, all the time. Now in my area, I got the most reviews, so
Mhm.
that's just what it is. I'm competing against them because that's really the market that I'm in right now. Uh, and then eventually with the Orkins and the Terminex, I mean, you kinda know what that is.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I guess also in terms of, on the subject of money, what would you say, if you happen to know it off the top of your head? I know mine just because it was so massive. What would you say that your biggest expense that came from a mistake so far since you started your business was?
Biggest expense.
Biggest learning lesson expense is what I like to refer to it as, biggest educational expense.
Honestly, man, I'm grateful. I haven't really had like big crazy like, oh my gosh, like I mean there was one situation maybe where like, the customer's dog got loose because of the gate wasn't closed.
Yeah.
That was a scary one, but for the most part I haven't had any really any serious stuff that like, would warrant like damage.
Nothing like a
Oh,
not even nothing like a, just marketing where you thought maybe a marketing campaign was gonna work and you're like, "Oh, man, that was quick thousand," or,
okay, yeah.
anything of that
Yeah, I guess in that particular aspect, yeah. Then so again, going back to using Thrive to
Mhm.
manage basically the marketing, I utilize so I use they provide different services, right, from SEO to social ads to just generating services, right, through getting leads through them, and I tried everything. I found that there was a bigger return with the SEO rather than the just like their lead services. It
Right.
brought in, some revenue, but it wasn't to what I expected. So I would say maybe just as far as in the marketing aspect, I spent money, in marketing where it probably I shouldn't have initially, but that was always a learning curve too. So there was some revenue that was lost in trying that, which again, first year in business, I'm okay kind of like experimenting and trying to see what's going to work, especially because you know, I'm a new business, so I have the opportunity to kinda try something to see what's gonna click. And I think you said it too a while ago in a YouTube video where like, you're new and it's just you have the opportunity to kinda just try something that's gonna work and then you
Mhm.
stick with it. So that's kinda what it was, just more trial and error in the marketing, point of view where I probably could have saved some more money and generated more revenue, if I put kinda all my bells and whistles more on SEO than anything.
Right. No, 100%. I agree with that big time. Like, the more that we continue to grow our online presence, specifically local SEO, website traffic, from the website SEO, I'm just like, dude, imagine where we'd be if day one, I was so in on local service ads because how much it generated, boom, from the start
Oh, yeah.
that I was just like, dude, imagine if you focused on the Google business profile more the first year and a half, or you focused on your website more the first year and a half. Like, who knows what the compound effect what that would have led to. And we're still seeing it because, 1 year in the big scheme of things isn't nothing, but it still makes you just think about what if more than anything. Which I guess kind of leads to another great question, which is just, we're gonna have a lot of people over the next call it 90 days, I guess, between end of February through May, roughly. Looking to start their own pest control businesses. So for those that are looking to start their own business over the next 90 days, what would you say is like one thing that they should just attack and another thing that might seem like it's going to help their business a lot, but they should probably not put as much emphasis on?
Yeah, if you're gonna start your own business, I would say make sure you're going in there with some capital, uh, you know, to basically put into the business. Focus on marketing, and if you're gonna wanna get some business right away, I would say target LSA, um, to start off, and then see, because every area is pretty different, right? So, like, right now, like, a normal LSA lead from my area is, like, $140. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
So, I guess it all really depends on your area, but I would say have money for some marketing, and try something that's gonna work for you, like, don't be afraid to. That's the biggest advice I can give someone is don't be afraid to try it. If you have the capital, just do it. If it's just you and, you don't have, like, babies or stuff like that, then, you have opportunity to kinda take some more risk, rather than being conservative. Make sure you have the products that you're gonna need. Make sure you're dressing well, to do your services and whatnot. You're looking presentable. Uh,
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate, the branding in terms of like like you said, being dressed apart, don't show up in uniform that doesn't have your company logo on it. Have a clean truck. Like, even if your truck doesn't necessarily have much labeling on it, at least make it to where they know who the heck's rolling up to their house in a clean vehicle. Like, so many little things that just can easily get swept under the rug because people think marketing, marketing, marketing. They're spending so much time, effort, money on marketing, but then they forget like the most basic concept that you're literally, a walking billboard, a driving
Yeah,
bill,
absolutely.
like something that just, even myself, like, I know when I very first started, my shirts weren't labeled, but within about a week, because I always, my number two in the company just gives me shit about it, where I'm like, man, like proof of concept, everything. I need proof of concept before we dive in. Same thing, even when I started the business, I was like, I'm not gonna dump a bunch of money into it. I will get my truck labeled because I found a guy who just started a decal company and he did the whole truck for like $350. I was like, dude, I'm just I'll put it on a credit card and move on. I get for that price, you can't pass up on it. But with my uniforms, I was like, I'm not gonna spend all this money on uniforms until I have some type of proof of concept that I can get customers. And after that first week, when we had the first like two or three customers, I was like, we got to get the uniforms just because, you know, it's something that even if you can't afford it, you need to try to afford it as early as possible. Like, do that first and foremost before you even focus on website marketing, all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge too, just making sure that you set up your Google My Business page so you get the LSA running and all that stuff, website, that's all huge. Little things like, going back to the truck, I didn't have my truck lettered yet.
Mhm.
Um, I have the new truck is 100% lettered. I didn't wrap it or anything like that, but it's
Mhm.
simple. It's straight to the point. But I've was we got a couple of calls because of the the advertisement just basically on the truck. So it's paid for itself already by now.
Yep.
And it's not gonna cost an arm and a leg. I mean, find someone local to you. I use Vistaprint for my uniforms. I keep it simple.
Mm.
I like black, like white, khaki, like worker pants and just Hims,
Right.
and then that's it. JKR, the initials of all my kids. So um, pretty simple. I like Vistaprint because they have great deals. I mean, I like their material. I like their shirts. I get Carhartt stuff sometimes. This is Port Authority. I kind
Mhm.
of like to make it look, I like to look good, while I'm doing this stuff. And I think a big part of it really goes back down to like my early days working at Orkin. So
Right. No, exactly. And not to mention too, like one thing people don't think about with it is once you start hiring people, like, yes, of course people want to get paid good, all the basic stuff. But one thing that, one man shows, including myself, early on don't think about is when you start hiring people, like they want to wear stuff that is comfortable, doesn't look ridiculous. Like if they, for example, ruin a shirt doing an exclusion job, like some caulk drips on it, not have to wear a caulk stained shirt forever, get it replaced as soon as possible, or better yet, have 5 or 6 other ones that they already have, so that one can just get pitched, or it can be an exclusion shirt now, whatever the case may be. Like, you it's not just you, it's not just the truck, like it's your entire organization. That's why, like, I tell and I will tell everybody, that we hire, like, hey, if something doesn't fit right, if I mean, shoot, if something's starting to come apart even, just tell us. Like, we would rather spend a little bit more on that, to make sure that everything, including you, technician, salesman, whatever the case may be, looks the best of the best because, you know, obviously you're going to have some customers, or I should say potential customers, leads that when you roll up and, your technician or your sales guy looks, 10 out of 10, vehicles 10 out of 10. Of course, you're going to have some that are like, oh, that's why they charge so much of it. Well, you damn right. That's why we charge a lot. Like we from the very beginning to the end are the best at everything. And if they don't like that, they're not your target customer anyways. The customers that appreciate, man, like he was clean. he put booties on before he even got to the door, like, all of that, like, it sets the foundation for your brand and what to expect from it.
Yeah, we do, we like to wear green nitrile gloves,
Mhm.
because green is my son's favorite color, so that's just kinda ever since the business yeah, ever since the business started, that's just kinda something we do, so we're the guys that wear the green gloves when we do the work.
Mhm.
Booties always, so, and all of this stuff, I mean, just find that something because it's not that expensive either, I mean, a box of 100 gloves, Harbor
Harbor
Freight
Freight.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, that's where I get a lot of my, PPE, respirators, face mask, all that stuff, I mean, it's not that expensive,
And it's
so
funny you
yeah, I mean
mentioned the green gloves too, 'cause, I don't know how long up there the Harbor Freight's been selling those green gloves, but I noticed down here they just started selling those, what, about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I was even, like, immediately drawn to them. I was like, "Oh, that's literally, like, perfect pest control color." Nothing else,
yeah,
like,
perfect.
so the big bright blue ones or whatever. I forget, they have black and then blue, I think, but no, it's funny you mentioned the green ones 'cause, yeah, we
It's
love those too.
It's a conversation starter. "Why do you guys wear green gloves?"
Mhm.
What's the difference between the gloves?" I'm like, "No, it's just my son's favorite color." We're like, "Well, that's pretty cool," like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's you tr again, in my wife helps me, occasionally with some stuff, and, and admin-wise, but mostly I'm operating all of it on my own. Uh, the service technician that works with me, I mean, he's just, he does his part-time hours, but he really does great work for us, and we're on the same page. It sucks because he's not going to be here long term because he's actually studying to be an EMS. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, which is great for him. But EMS hours are crazy, because you could do a 12-hour shift is going to turn into a 16-hour shift. But
Right.
so I have right now I have a lot of work to do as far as bringing in soon because I don't have that much time left. I mean, really, it's now till maybe like May. It's 3 or 4 months, but in reality, just like the onboarding and then the training and all that stuff, I only have a month to find somebody. So that's that
Exactly.
that's really where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, I'm in a similar boat in terms of course, we're starting some interviews next week, as a matter of fact, for door to door. We're doing it all in-house, training them in-house because I do not trust agencies whatsoever. Of course, we've all heard the horror stories of, different agencies, just their reps. We hear about it every year. So we decided, well, we wanna do it, and you know what better way to do it than find our own? Sure, there's gonna be lots of trial, let them go. You know, you find a few that end up working out. And with that being said, we know that if we get even just 2 or definitely 4, but even if we just get 2 to 4 of them selling at a fairly consistent rate day in and day out, we're obviously going to have to hire 1, if not 2 technicians pretty fast. But at the same time, like you mentioned, there's a whole onboarding process to do it properly, especially if you hire a guy with no experience because you have to go through all the certification process in terms of like in Texas, you first and foremost, of course, notify the state that hey, we need an apprentice license for this guy. Then in Texas, they have to have at least 1 week of training in class, is what they call it, pretty much sitting in front of a computer for a week learning a lot of stuff they're not even gonna remember after a week. And then from there, they also have to have a minimum of 1 week of OJT. So you're losing roughly 2 to 4 weeks just in training if you're gonna train the right way, do everything by the book on top of that. So, that's one thing we've been talking about a lot is, how are we gonna balance this growth that we're about to experience with quality control? So
Mhm.
that's yeah, you have to time it very you're threading a needle to say it,
Totally.
nicely in terms of there's some stressful days for sure. It's just but that's part of the growth ultimately. Like we always talk about, there's ways that you can make it a lot easier on yourself and, keep it small. And then, if you want to keep growing, you're gonna do things you haven't done before and you're gonna learn a lot of lessons along the way. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear from you how it goes, like, that transition, getting like that full-time guy. So is the part-time guy gonna stay on as the full-time guy's coming on, or is it gonna be like
So part-time guy, he works Monday, Wednesday, Fridays.
Mhm.
And I fill in certain days, but I'm also on the road. Like today, you know, today he was working. He's working now. And I had a couple work, some work in the morning. And I kind of focus more on the bigger accounts, sort of say, not, and I don't mean like, big residential or anything like that. Like these are big, like IPM is a little bit more involved. You got to speak to a contact, you got to be a little bit more
Right.
involved, note taking, etc. But yeah, no, he's gonna stay in until the latter part of May, so towards the end of May. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of just bring on a full-time guy,
Mhm.
um, along with potentially just honestly bringing in another part-time guy because
Mm.
um, I I wanna my goal by year 3 is to have 2 full-time guys, with
Right.
me solely focusing in sales and basically just running a business, and doing any, like, trouble issue accounts, accounts that have issues and whatnot, troubleshooting. Um, there's a goal I came in here with 5 years, kinda like, "Hey, 5 years is if I don't get to this in 5 years, then that's it, I'm not really gonna keep pushing for it." But
Oh.
if I right now I'm in a direction where I'm gonna hit my numbers. It was a little slow this month, but, we're doing alright. Everything is getting paid, everyone's getting paid, so we're doing good. Again, just focusing during the smaller season, slower months to bring in that recurring work that's bigger, sort of say, right?
Right.
Kinda like a bigger account, bigger paycheck, sort of say.
Yeah.
Just because of the background in the networking, but yeah, hopefully by the end of this year, I'll have a full-time guy, straight full-time, and, working with me, and then a part-time guy as well with, me kinda just being a support system and, selling as much as I can really. Because I've seen guys on YouTube where, like, they've been interviewed and they're like, they've gotten to, like, over $1,000,000 in, like, this less than a year, and I'm like, "Yo, like, that is awesome," but how I just wonder more
A
on your service
whirlwind.
aspect. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just kinda like you say, quality control, right? Like QA, right? Like, you just you wanna audit things, just you don't wanna get too crazy where, like, it's kinda all just kinda gonna erupt,
Right.
and,
Right. Yeah, like, those
5
are
years out.
2 that's like a whole different side of the business where, like, you're usually talking people that started their business with the sole intention of, "Imma build this as quick as I can, and Imma have a quick exit," essentially.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, I always say, even if you don't plan on selling, build your business to sell all the time. Like, it's not to say that you want to sell, build it to sell, but more importantly than, or not more importantly, but most importantly, I should say, when it comes to building to sell, is showing that, hey, we didn't just load up this company with 10,000 accounts in like 2 summers. And 20% of them or more are, is our churn rate in terms of customers that are falling out of the bucket every year. We actually added only a few hundred this year. Then we added a few hundred that year. Then we added like 1,000 that year, and then a couple thousand. Like just and not just adding, but out of all those that we're adding, we're actually keeping 90+% of them as well. Because nothing is going to add more to your company's value than the average. Like that's one thing I see. Like no one talking about in these groups. They talk about contract value, how much of it is contracted, through the end of the year, through the next year, but they don't talk about average duration of a client.
yeah,
Like you want to talk about something that's going to blow up, your overall evaluation. Like, yes, all that definitely matters, but whenever you can show, hey, so such and such company you're looking at acquiring, they have a 20 to 30% turnover rate of customers. We have 9. We have like
yeah,
9%, 12%, then
yeah.
who's gonna be more valuable in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think just really thinking back at the numbers, a lot of the customers that we brought in 2025, early on in 2025, they're still with us. We only lost 2 accounts, that we brought in from last year. And, I mean, at that point, it really wasn't like a quality of service. That point, they didn't really just, really need the services, but, whatever, they'll touch base when they need us again. But we retained a lot of our work, as well as, our renewals. I mean, we sold quite a bit of termite work last year where like, all those people are due for it's February, March, like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna get like just revenue just for renewals. And a lot of these people already signed their contracts, so I'm good to go.
Mm.
And then also the seasonal work. I mean, the people that sign up for me last year's season, like, I mean, I'm in the process of working in a good promo to kind of just get them locked in for the year. And the majority of them, I'm fairly confident the majority of them will actually just end up signing up with me for the year. So yeah, we're gonna be busy. I mean, my wife, she works too, but she works part-time. Going into this was, there was a goal too. So, for myself, for the business, and making sure that she was comfortable with everything too. So I have 3 kids,
Right.
man. So like, we're all over the place.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean. I got 2 girls under 6, under 7, so it's like,
Mm.
whew, I know exactly what you mean there. But yeah, no, I'll be interested to see kind of how just specifically 2026, 2027 unfolds for you all because I know, like you said, you all tend to be on top of the Google reviews. I see like we said at the beginning of the show, you're over 120 reviews, which is very good for, first. I mean, shoot, we're just now about to hit 200 and we're what in year 6 in terms of full years. So, and we've done the same thing over the last year or two specifically, especially now that, I finally am hired full time and have the ability to sit down and work on all those automations to get more reviews and all that stuff. It makes that a lot easier. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see kind of just how everything unfolds. We're definitely gonna have to have you back on, what about a year, I guess, from now, just to kind of get a recap of how 2026 went. Did you end up going 2 full timers? Did you stick with the one and then another half timer? Or, like you said, just kind of how that entire journey unfolds for this year.
No, totally. I mean, it's exciting. I know this summer, this early, spring, summer, we're gonna be very busy. Um, again, just I've set everything up in a way where like it's kind of calm right now, but it's just gonna get crazy. And the crazy is okay. I mean, I'm doing this long enough where like I kind of in pest control, I always tell everybody that's new to the industry, like expect the unexpected because that's just the reality of it. This type of business from a guy I met a couple years ago, like, you wanna win this game, and the best way to win it is response time and availability,
Yes.
which is a big factor in this type of business.
Mhm. That's why I
Yeah,
tell
so
people
it's
what I learned from my experience, and I'm sure you can relate to this based on just what you said right there alone. We think when it comes to making that first hire that, "Oh, man, I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if I can afford it." And, like, next thing you know, you're kind of just plateauing, and then the moment you pull that trigger and hire because you're like, "Well, shit, like, nothing's happening in my business. Like, I need to at least sink or swim." The moment you do, because now there's more availability, there's availability to answer the phone right there on the spot versus, getting a voicemail and going on to the next company. All of that, it adds up so quickly that it's like, even if nothing changes in your business, lead volume, quality of leads, closing rates, this and that and the other, nothing changes. Just the fact that you're able to answer the phone and show up faster grows your business exponentially just from making
absolutely.
hire, which, is hard to factor into your equation when you're hiring, especially your first technician or anyone for that matter, because you just don't know until you do it. But then once you do, you're like, dude, oh my gosh, like imagine if I'd done this months ago, a year ago, whatever
Yeah.
that case may be. Of course, you still want to be smart with it, but if you're kind of hovering around that line, anybody watching where you're like, man, I feel like we just haven't moved a lot over the last 3 months, 6 months, or a year or longer, it might be worth looking at, if nothing else, at a bare minimum, getting a part timer just to unlock that time because like
Yeah.
I said,
Mhm.
just, check if nothing else, if you have a call rail is who we use, but if you have a call tracking software, something that shows your average response times, time to answer the phone, time to get back to a missed call, like just all these analytics, dive in and see, how much are we leaving on the table, and then just do some terrible percentage, like, okay, let's say only 20% of them convert to anything, then, you see what your opportunity cost is that you're missing out on.
Yeah, totally. I would also recommend to anybody kinda just starting into this, I mean, put make sure that you're taking care of yourself, financially, you're being responsible with that. I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
paying myself anything crazy. I mean, I live in one of the most expensive state in New York, and
Right.
I'm paying myself enough where I'm living okay, you know what I mean? And, again, my wife works too. I mean, it's kinda one of those things where the reality of it, but if you can save money in the business, do it. I mean, I started with open phone. I still use open phone as my main,
Mhm.
you know? Now it's what was it, Q or something like that? Yeah, so,
My phone, quote, cute, yeah, so
yeah. So I use
no, I just randomly had that brand change. I was like, "That's random."
yeah, that was random. So I use them. I've used Sona too, kinda little trial thing in here, but what I love the most about it is kinda like just in the event if I do miss a phone call, like, just the auto response is, like, huge for me.
Yeah.
Um, even the just I've utilized that system just to get reviews like crazy. Like, you have no idea because it's such again, just the area where I'm in, everybody texts. I mean, they're just
Mhm.
on their phone texting. So, like, if that's their means of communication all the time, then
Mhm.
cool. That's what I'm gonna do. So they're on their phone. I'll send them a link for a review, and that's how I was able to generate a lot of the reviews. It's just like having correspondence with them by text because it's easier for them. I'm like, all right, cool, and then just get the review, and then they're happy.
Exactly. And, with Quo, they are available on tools like Zapier, Make, all these automation
Mhm.
tools. One thing that we even did, which has helped tremendously with, like, overnight, like, we got Facebook ads running, and we noticed a lot of them tend to come in after, like, 10 o'clock at night. Um, and we set up an automation where as soon as a Facebook lead comes in,
Mhm.
it will send all that information over to Quo, save them as a contact, and then boom, send them out an automated message, just like an introductory message, based on the form that they filled out. And then, sometimes it's 50-50. Some respond, some don't. The ones that do, the conversion rate is so much higher, obviously, because they're already engaged. And even the ones that don't, sometimes, all you gotta do is call them up the next morning. Obviously, if you see that they filled it out at like 3 a.m., probably don't call them when you open at 7 or 8. Probably wait till 10 or 11 in the morning. But play that game, and you'll see that, like you said, just having all these different tools. And as I say all these, there's not even that many that you really need. You need a good CRM, you need a good, text messaging software. Um, and then, like you mentioned with Quo, with the Sona, which is inside of Quo, if you're able to play around with a tool that, could be like a phone answering assistant, you can set up in Quo, what they call a call flow system where, like, say after hours, it goes straight to that, or you can send them to a menu of, would you rather speak with our AI assistant or just leave us a voicemail? Give the customer the choice. There's so many things that you can do versus just traditional, you know, here's my phone number. Either I answer or I don't. And, oh, I'll text you whenever I see your form 12 hours from now. Like, when you have all these different automations in place, like we were even talking about before this show, you know, there's there are companies and people that rely too much on automation and AI and all this other stuff. But for stuff like this, it's almost a must anymore if you want to compete.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. You mentioned, Facebook ads, like, what has been your experience with that? Because 'Cause I'm actually, kinda just looking to see getting into that. I mean, based off, like, the conversation we were having earlier on, like, the social ads and all that stuff, like,
Right.
how's your experience been with that?
The jury is still out on that.
Mhm.
We're gonna run it through the end of the month just to kind of, more than likely at least, unless if it just goes up in flames, the end of the month just to have like a full month and a half of data on it. We're running the one that I would say is most successful. We're running $40 a day of ad budget on it. And people should know, just because you have it set to 40 a day doesn't mean you're always gonna hit it. Once you go through kind of the first couple of days to a week, I would say, and especially once you start getting a couple leads and you are good about going into your Facebook lead center and saying like, "Hey, this lead wasn't qualified. This lead sucked. This lead was good. This one converted." Giving Facebook that information. Um, there's a lot of fine tuning that Facebook's algorithm does. What's it called? The Andromeda update. When it comes to that, and then also add creative, like there's a whole lot that goes into it that I didn't even realize, because, I just never tinkered with it that much. But I'll say from what I've started to notice specifically over the last few days to a week, now that we've really kind of started getting this campaign dialed in, um, it doesn't seem that bad. Like we at one point when we first launched it, it was like, "Oh my gosh, we're paying $2 per lead. Like, what's going on? It seemed too good to be true." And that's because it was. Those leads were crap. And then I found out our form was too easy to fill out. So we had to make it, a little bit harder because apparently competitors will, not just competitors, but just straight up scamming companies will pay for people overseas to just fill out these forms for no reason, essentially. So the harder you make it, the less likely they are to go through and do that. So we tightened that up a lot, made it where, you had to actually hand type in a lot of answers, all this stuff. And over the last 24 hours alone, we've had 4 legitimate leads that we've already scheduled an inspection on one of them, which is a 10,000 square foot house that needs an exclusion service on it in Frisco, Texas. There's 2 or 3 others that we're in talks with too. It's like I said, it's still to be determined on if I think it's worth it over, like, say, a Google Ads or just doubling down on whatever is working for you. But I think at a bare minimum, it's definitely good enough to where once your marketing budget gets to a point to where you've got even just an extra $10 to $40 a day, then, it's just another avenue that you can collect leads from. Like I said, it's too early still, in my opinion, for me to say, like, oh, it's up here or down here in terms of quality. But if the last 24 to 72 hours is an indicator of anything, it's kind of starting to move up my list a little bit because we're getting a lot better response rate now, booking rate, all that stuff. And of course, our cost per lead has gone up. I think last I looked, this morning, last couple days, it's been around $30 or so. But hey, $30 per lead, like we were talking about with LSA, in a lot of competitive areas, it's over $100 now, 100,
Yeah.
$150. So even if, say, 1 out of 3 Facebook leads are just junk, like you don't, like no matter what you do, 1 in 3 of them are just junk. Well, even if 2 of them are legitimate, say you're paying 30 or even $40, okay, 3 times 40, that's 120, and 2 of them were legit, okay, that's $60 per legit lead. That's half the cost or less of like Google LSA. So that's always how I tend to break down marketing in general when I'm going to a different platform is I'm like, let me get solid 1 to 3 months of data, like true data, try not to tweak a whole heck of a lot outside of obvious stuff, like when I found out the whole thing about form fraud and stuff like that. Once you get everything kind of dialed in, see how at least 1 to 3 months goes of data, then take a broader step back and look at, okay, what was our CPAs, cost per acquisition of customers versus Google Ads versus just if we double down on SEO. Like I was saying, we like taking a step back, just seeing, how it compares to everything that we're doing. And if nothing else, at a bare minimum, is it worth at least having what I like to call like a drip campaign budget where, okay, we don't really expect this thing to be just a massive lead generator for us, but if it can at least provide a good return, good enough return to break even, the first 90 days, something like that, okay, let's go ahead and give it a little bit of ad budget. Or, is it just something that, okay, let's just kick that down the road, kick that can down the road, see what happens. But yeah, no, assuming that, everything does end up looking like it's been over the last few days, if that continues over the coming weeks, I'll definitely have to do some, little updates or tutorials possibly of just, how we went about setting that up, because that is one thing when it comes to Facebook ads, just like Google ads, ultimately traditional Google ads, not LSA. LSA is pretty straightforward, of course, but just like Google ads, there's so many just little nuances that, if you miss one thing or you overlook it, it can wreck your budget. And then we're all sitting there going, oh, this doesn't work. It's a waste of money. Well, and it's like, well, no, you're just not playing the game right, unfortunately. So, yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna keep everybody updated on that because what we got probably about 2 weeks left in the month at the time of shooting this podcast, and by the end of the month, I should definitely have a good amount of data. We'll have about 6 to 8 weeks of data, accurate data, I should say, on everything, and I'll be able to have a more definitive answer. I know we've already spent over $1,000, so we're definitely getting there in terms of having enough data to kind of make a decision on it. But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. But yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on today. I know we're just over an hour roughly of doing this, and I know we chatted about 20, 30 minutes before about everything too. So we appreciate you coming on the show today. And if any of you have any questions, comments, anything like that for me or Freddie, I know we'll both be checking out the comments of this video. You can leave them there. And of course, if you're not in the Discord group that we're both in, like everything, that's all free to join. Link for that will be in my link tree down below. Freddie, do you have any last words or anything? Any encouragement or motivation for the audience?
Yeah, for sure. If you're looking to start your business, do it. Being an entrepreneur, being your own business owner, it's the only way you're really gonna make it out here right now. In the times that we're living in. I mean, if you want to live in that corporate world or just, work for somebody, that's cool too. But, start something on your own and kind of work towards that because there's a good reward towards all of that at the end of it. It's yours. So, and if you decide to sell it 15, 20 years down the line, then you're going to reap the benefits of all of that too anyway. But if you want to leave it for somebody, then you leave it for somebody. So, but do it. Don't stop. Do it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, could not agree more. I actually got a lot more on what you briefly mentioned there about in the world we're living in today, it kind of being the only thing that you can do to
Yeah.
achieve financial freedom. More to come
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
But yeah, no, I appreciate you all for tuning in to this episode. And like I said, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments down below. And again, Freddie, we appreciate you hopping on, taking the time today, and we will see y'all in the next one.